Greetings and welcome to Dear Earth 3. We've seen how the mathematical, I'd call it a regime of truth, the regime of truth based on a really relatively simple idea, I suppose, that the world can best or only really be understood fully through mathematics. I just want to say a few more words about the provenance of that notion. I mean, it takes us back to the ancient Greeks, to the Pythagorean school. Um, Pythagoras really would have said that, or that school would have said that all is number. That number really underpins any possible understanding of the world. Aristotle, for example, said that the principles of mathematics are in fact the principles of all things. So you can see the extent to which that notion that, in other words, one could say that the language of creation, God's language of creation, if you wish, is mathematics, and that our own experience of the world is not to be trusted to give us any sort of reliable or useful understanding. Probably the best, clearest statement, really, in that regard is from Lord Kelvin, the 19th century Irish mathematician or scientist, I suppose. And I quote him: "I often say that when you can measure what you're speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meagre and unsatisfactory kind. It may be the beginning of knowledge, but you have scarcely in your thoughts advanced to the stage of science, whatever that matter may be." So here he's stating very clearly that mathematics, it's through mathematics that we come to a reliable understanding of the world. We call that a regime of truth, if you like, which supplanted the earlier regime of truth, or you could say paradigm, which would have been a religious one, where an understanding of what the world is would have been determined through religious doctrine, through sacred texts and so on, through the dogma of the church. And you can understand that this new regime of truth based on mathematics was really a kind of release, you could say a joyful release from religious authority, and was enthusiastically taken up, of course, by scientists over the years. Galileo, for example, stated that the book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. Anyway, so just to say that idea, that notion, determines to a very significant extent how we experience the world, and that mathematics and reality are coterminal, if you like, or they are the same thing. Reality is only discernible through mathematics. And of course, what that regime of truth, what that new idea, if you like, amounted to is that it gave us tremendous power over nature, over the natural world. and there began to diverge the two paths, if you like, of knowledge. The path of knowledge determined through mathematics, and the path of knowledge, if such existed, through our own direct and immediate experience in and of the world. The extreme view is not that maths is a reliable guide to reality, but that mathematics is, in fact, reality. And that gives us a world of quantities, not of qualities. I mean, Galileo really excluded these qualitative aspects, colour, smells, and so on. And light itself, was understood mathematically, not through an exposure or not through an intensified experience of colour, but rather it was simply determined by subjecting colour to kind of mathematical analysis. Bertrand Russell has something very interesting to say. He says that physics is mathematical not because we know so much about the world, but because we know so little. It is only its mathematical properties we can discover. And it's true, it's only its mathematical properties we can discover through that science, through that particular, like, mindset. And therefore human experience is exiled, is cast out, as any kind of authoritative guide to knowledge. And of course, maths and that science built on that science and technology built on that mathematical foundation permeates our lives. And while we give some space, I suppose, for other kinds of knowledge, it's the overweening authority of the science based on mathematics which permeates our culture and has effectively given us this culture that we have. Now, that divergence from, if you like, of a mathematical way of understanding the world as opposed to a way of understanding the world determined by our own, if you like, intensified experience. And we can see which particular path has been followed and has given us all this technology. Now, the other path, the other possibility that exists, or at least there may well be many more possible ways of knowing and understanding the world. But one particular one I'm going to suggest is described to us or given to us or offered to us by J.W. van Goethe. Now, I did mention in the last episode that our video that I would introduce you to what I refer to probably as the hero. Well, he may not be the hero, but he's a central character in this new possible way of experiencing the world, by focusing on our experience, by intensifying our experience of the world, of the natural world. So Goethe, of course, is not so well known in Ireland, in the English-speaking world generally. He is nonetheless, or was a really a historical figure in the German language. He was a major literary figure in the German language. He was a novelist, a poet, a playwright, storyteller as well, I suppose. But actually, he was also a scientist. He described his scientific work in some detail. However, that has largely been dismissed and ignored as a kind of dilettantish, mistaken understanding of science by the prevailing science, or the science that prevailed. Nonetheless, I think we can legitimately refer to it as a science. Goethe, as I said, was known as a playwright, as a literary figure. To say briefly, I'll say more about Goethe in later videos, but he, broadly speaking, you could say that he could not understand or would not accept that any useful understanding of the world and our place in the world, any useful understanding of that could not be gained by placing any kind of filter between us and our experience, whether it be a religious filter, in other words, an understanding of the meaning of human life, the meaning of life itself, or our existence here, dictated to us by religious doctrine on the one hand, nor would he accept that by placing a mathematical lens and filtering through that mathematical lens all that we might come to know about the world. He could not accept that either of those could usefully inform us about the world. Mathematics, he said, belongs in its own realm, but it's not something through which we should attempt to experience the world. His view was, here we are, created and placed somehow in this world, in the natural world, should we say, and surely our possibility for understanding this world can be determined only by increasing our attention to that world, by placing ourselves in a relationship with that world, which is based on respect and intimacy and, if you like, not knowing, coming to the natural world and assuming that by giving it our concentrated attention, there is something to be learnt there. There is another kind of knowing that is possible. Now, again, I'll say a good deal more about Goethe later on. I do want to mention, in a way, as a kind of aside now, that I believe that we are now at this 21st century. We are approaching, or we are in the midst already, of a kind of changing mindset or a new paradigm. And trying to, I'm not at all sure that this change that's taking place will present us with a paradigm that resembles anything like Goethe's paradigm, if you like. But that is at least one possibility, that the new paradigm or another paradigm could be based on our experience, on our intensified experience of the world. There was a historian of science, Thomas Kuhn, who wrote a text in the middle of the 20th century, which he referred to, or is called, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And in this, he describes, or he puts forward the notion that scientific revolutions have a certain shape, a certain structure, recognizable structure. And central in that is the idea that any paradigm or any overall understanding of the world, any picture of the world, there will be anomalies will arise in time. Anomalies that challenge that particular paradigm or don't fit in or are uncomfortable. And he describes how that happens or has happened in history. The anomalies that appear, I think that we are in the midst now of, or it's possible now for us to identify the anomalies that challenge the current paradigm, the current technological paradigm. And the anomalies are with us every day. The climate crisis, the pollution of the environment, more and more, day by day, more and more information is appearing as to how this particular mindset or paradigm within which we live is no longer serving our needs. And that we could at least begin to think about other ways of living in this world and challenging the authority of that mathematical science. And of course, Goethe is a very good place, in my view, is a very good place for us to start. Now, his science, Goethean science, if you like, more or less, it appeared from time to time over these past 300 years. And there is increasing interest in what he had to say. But, and I will get a chance to go through that in some detail. And there's some, authoritative and eminent scientists who've looked at his work and taken it seriously and have presented us with options, ways for us to be scientists ourselves, but scientists of experience, scientists of the interaction, the possible interactions between ourselves and the natural world. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, and then in Dear Earth 4, I will say a few more words about Goethe. Okay, thank you.